Welcome back everyone to the Money Control live stream. You're watching Markets with Santo and CJ. Well, Santo, a very solid end to Friday, a very solid end to the week as well. It seems like it's Friday on street, even though there's such a big event on the horizon that everybody has been so apparently nervous about. It seems like, the market is looking, or at least the bulls are out there looking the Fed in the eye and saying, I dare you to be hawkish. It's the way the market has rebounded today. It seems like market is wishing for the Fed to be very kind, Paul to be very kind, and suggest that rate hikes are going to be slower. They are going to probably move slower on the rate hike going ahead, and that should be probably good for stocks and overall risk assets in general. If you look at the only thing that Santo stood out for me is the participation level was a little limited today. I mean, if you look at the daily turnover today, it was somewhere in the range of 39 to 42,000 crores by the end of by the start of the show. So clearly, not much below your average daily turnover that you'll see. Overall, globally, if you look at, oil was positive. Surprisingly, oil is hovering near that $100 per barrel mark. But the US dollar index also was higher. So that is clearly something to watch out for. And in general, I was looking at the positioning, Santo, of how various market participants are positioned. If you look at the bears, they are sort of betting against the wind. They are almost net short more than $1 billion at this point of time, hoping that the general audience is wrong and that the Fed will remain hawkish and suggest that rate hikes are going to continue at the current pace. Whereas if you look at the retail interests, they are quite optimistic.
Well, CJ, the Fed has not really indicated that it's dovish. It's just that from time to time, market chooses to read what it wants to into Fed statement. Fed has made it very clear that tackling inflation is its #1 priority and that it will continue with the pace of hikes. The only concession probably it has made is that, and which is logical as well, is saying that of course they don't want to push the economy into a recession. So obviously they will look at the pace of hikes, but there is no disputing the direction. Directionally, till you are yet to see some more hikes, and not only is the market ignoring the fact that there are going to be interest rate hike, it's also ignoring the slowdown that you're already seeing in some of the major economies of the world. So right now, the bulls seem to be in a self-made paradise. They're having a good time, but frankly, CJ, I don't know how long this can continue.
Well, Santo, I think, if we do not get into a recession, and there was a very interesting data point I recently saw at a market event. They pointed out that, generally when the S&P has fallen, say 15 to 20% in anticipation of a recession, and if that recession comes, then S&P tends to go even lower, probably double the amount, right? But if the recession doesn't come, and it's just merely a slowdown in the economy, but the recession doesn't come, it tends to give more than 20% returns 1 year out. So now, the play here now in the market, I feel, is that probably rate hikes is not that bigger issue. I think what is bigger issue is whether the US economy and along with it the global economy, because we know when the US sneezes, the world catches the cold. If that happens, will the market fall even more, or will probably we have made the bottom in June and we can now start the next bull market?
Probably, I think from the look of it, the market is betting on a shallow recession or whatever you call that. But let's see, I think the jury is still out on that one.
That's it, Santo. Let's quickly move on to some of the stocks that were buzzing in trade, and I'm sure a defense name is coming into picture.
Of course, CJ, and for good reason also. Look at the stock performance. Starting with Bharat Electronics, the stock continues to make record highs. Today it's trading over 300 rupees. It's been a consistent one-way rise over the last many months. Initially, the story was about defense indigenization, but if you now look at Bharat Electronics' first quarter numbers, one of the strong points is that the company has been able to retain its margins despite rising cost pressures. It's been, according to analysts tracking the stock, the company has been able to achieve economies of scale, as a result of which it was able to absorb the fixed cost. More importantly, the management has guided for EBITDA margins in the range of 20 to 22% for this financial year. And besides that, it's not just about defense. Now, the company's operations in other areas such as healthcare, metros, EVs, that's also something that analysts tracking the stock say could yield increasing returns going forward. And last of all, you have the order book, which is about a little over 55,000 crores, which is nearly 4 times the annual earnings which gives enough visibility on earnings there. So it's for good reason that you're seeing the stock run up like this.
Well, Santo, I think clearly if you look at the charts of BEL, it's a thing of beauty at this point of time, given that it's been just a one-way up move on the charts for the past 2 to 3 months, and clearly on a technical level, it appears that this is a stock in a structural bull market at this point of time. All the moving averages are currently above their, historical levels. And the only thing, with this company is that if you look at it from a very immediate term, I was just looking through the FNO data. It seems like the 320 odd level could prove to be an immediate resistance for the stock. Maybe there's a possibility that some bit of profit booking may come at that level, largely because a lot of call writers are very active. They've been very aggressively selling the call options at that strike price, and it seems to me maybe a near-term top is on the offer. We will have to wait and see, because so far that strategy has not worked out. It has been able to break above all of the resistance that it has encountered so far. But it'll be interesting to see if this 320 level is broken in the September FNO series. On the fundamental side, yes, execution is something that Santo, I think, still remains a big risk for the company. It's well and good to have a huge number of orders, but if you can't execute on those orders, or if your costs are overrun, then it can become problematic for the companies because of the the supply chain issues globally, which has clearly still not eased because of what is happening in China. I think that is something that market should be very cognizant about.
Well, maybe, yes, the stock has had a good run. At some point, obviously, it's going to run into profit taking, CJ. No disputing that.
Well, Santo, moving on, next stock on my radar is Nelco. Well, upper circuit on the stock since the morning. It was higher by about 10% today. Clearly, given the sort of news flow that has come in yesterday, the company announced that they have gotten into a pact with Intelsat for providing in-flight connectivity. So now what happens is basically any airline partner of Intelsat, or any airliner which has partnered with Intelsat to provide in-flight connectivity or internet services, they can now provide that in India, not only for domestic flight, but also for international flights, and also any flight that goes through the Indian aerospace will also be able to provide that. Now, how will Intelsat provide? Because India has now allowed in-flight connectivity, and Nelco being the chief satellite communication distributor, they are in that partnership to provide these services. Clearly, this is a big kicker as far as Nelco's ambitions are concerned in terms of in-flight connectivity. The company launched these services about 2 years ago, Santo, and it is trying to gain more strength in this market. They're aiming to be the #1 service provider, and I think this is something that a lot of analysts in the market feel could be a big growth story in the market, and you have seen that in the stock price action as well. The stock is up about more than 85% in the past 1 year. And I think another thing on the technical charts for Santo, the stock has given 3 bullish signals over the past 1 month alone. The last time this happened, it ended up more than doubling its stock price. So I'm a little bullish that probably going ahead, for at least for the next few months, I think this will be one stock that will probably do quite well.
Well, this is a major order win or major arrangement, no doubt about that one. CJ, but just a little bit of perspective here. I've been tracking Nelco stock for almost 2 decades.
Wow.
Every now and then, during a bull run, the stock would really rally. There would be some story or the other, and then it will fizzle out. But in the next bull run, again promisingly, it would always rally, and there would be many stories to it. So as such, this has been one of the storied stocks, I would say.
Wow.
And
one of
the favorite stories there, which would which would be doing the rounds at that counter, is that this is the company where Ratan Tata had begun his career.
Right.
So that place is always going to have a soft spot, and because of which probably there could be some major initiative there. That has been a standard story for a very long time, but this time the performance has really been spectacular. But if you look at it, CJ, this is a stock which has always run ahead of fundamentals. Back then, even then when the numbers were nothing to write home about, you would still see the stock doing very well in a bull market, and that's the case even now also. If you just look at the numbers dispassionately over the last many quarters, it's been pretty much in the same range. And if you see it over the last 10 years also, the growth has been okay. It's a modest 11%, which is nothing great considering the kind of valuation the stock is enjoying at this point in time. Now, things may change probably, but I would rather wait for it, because there have been plenty of stories like this in the past also, where expectations have been pretty much high, but nothing really has come out.
But Santo, if you wait for it, the opportunity would be lost.
Well, probably it would be lost, but as I say, probably then you'll get a chance again in the next bull run, given its track record. Yes, last point, CJ.
Yeah.
There's also the low floating stock, which is one of the factors. Just 2.3 crore shares in all, of which 50% is owned by the management. So that leaves just 1 crore. So somebody who has accumulated a big chunk of those shares early on, means that there's no real floating stock
Recently,
available.
the stock has seen a good amount of volumes, but actually it's been a little bit of a divided picture, because if you look at the past 5 to 10 sessions when the volumes have been big, there have been 2 down days, 2 up days. So clearly not a very clear picture in terms of who is accumulating or who is selling out in this rally. But at this point of time, clearly the stock remains in top of the news.
Well, next stock is Indraprastha Gas. Despite all the pessimism on the gas sector, CJ,
are they pessimistic anymore? I mean, looking at the stock performance, Santo, I can't really tell that the market is pessimistic.
Well, okay, they've rebounded over the last couple of months. There's been some gains, but over the last 6 months, if you look at it, then these stocks have not really made money for investors. Of late, probably the pessimism may have been overdone and some kind of correction has happened. Now, one of the triggers that has led to the renewed interest in these stocks is the government's decisions to increase allocation of domestic gas about 94% to city gas distribution companies. That has really changed sentiment for that. But a word of again caution here that analysts are mixed in their outlook on this development. So some like CLSA say that this is just going to provide temporary relief, nothing more than that. Prices will again come up for revision in
September.
In September.
Actually, just on another
in a few days. Jefferies, although, is of the view that this will help them maintain their margins, hold on their margins for some more time to come. Now, if you look at IGL during the first quarter, margins were under pressure, no doubt. From about 30%, they have come down to less than 20%. But at the same time, there's been a significant rise in top line numbers for that. So, on the whole, at the margins, the company seems to be doing well. But it could also be that market had taken an extremely pessimistic view, and now they are reverting to a little bit. But clearly, this has been one of the surprise performers over the last.
Yeah, I mean, Santo, if you have been able to call the bottom in the stock a couple of months ago, and probably going ahead, if there is a top on the horizon, then clearly you have played it quite well. I mean, congratulations to you. But I still don't remain convinced that IGL is something that you can probably bet on over the next 12 months. If you look at the stock right now, yes, it has given a major rally because there is expectation and margins will be resilient, and that is what a lot of brokerages are playing at. But let's not forget that September, domestic natural gas prices are probably going to nearly double in price, right? Because internationally, natural gas prices have gone through the roof. Structurally, it seems natural gas prices are expected to remain elevated going into the future, because let's not forget that oil production is no longer coming back to the level it was. Oil companies are just not investing anymore in developing oil drills these days. So therefore, automatically natural gas, which is also a byproduct of oil drilling, will clearly not be available in that quantum. So structurally also, it seems that margins will remain under pressure for IGL. If you look at it from a technical point of view, I think the 440 level could be an interesting level for the company stock Santo, because there's a lot of call writers that are active at that level in the F&O segment, and it will be interesting to see if that becomes a short-term resistance for the stock. Overall, yes, looking good at this point of time, but maybe not so much if you're looking at it from a 12-month horizon. Last stock on my radar today is from the mid-cap space, GMM Pfaudler. This is one stock that was a big story back, now I have to say back in the day, but it's only been 2 years actually. Seems like an age. Late 2020, early 2021, GMM Pfaudler was a big story. Just before that, catastrophic OFS that happened, and then since then, the stock's performance has fizzled out. But recently, the stock has again started to gain traction. Also on a technical level, because it has formed a golden cross. A golden cross is a situation wherein the 50-day moving average basically moves above the 200-day moving average from a lower level, and generally when that happens, you can expect continued strength in the stock in the future. Also, very interestingly, mutual funds have been net buyers in the stock Santo in the month of July, and from what I hear, even in August, in month of July, they bought more than I think 200 crore worth of shares on the counter, and it seems like August numbers will also probably be in that category. So clearly, institutional investors are also quite interested on this counter. And overall, if you look at the Q1 earnings, the earnings were decent, but the commentary is what market is playing at, because the commentary from the management indicated that demand from clients or the clients that the service in the pharmaceutical and the chemical space clearly remains very strong.
Well, yes, in the market sometimes it does pay to have a short memory, CJ. A couple of years back, exactly, the OFS thing was a big fiasco. The pricing happened at such a huge discount which made people wonder whether the stock was worth that much. But now 2 years later, again buyers are queuing up to buy the stock, and as you pointed out, institutional investors too have made a beeline for it. The company operates in a niche segment, and that's one of the moats for GMM Pfaudler. Clearly has been able to maintain its margins well. So at this point, very little to argue against the stock, and also HNIs seem to be kind of lining up at the counter again. Just 2 days back, you saw some huge volume. They're close to 16 lakh shares changing hands. But most importantly, barely 14 or 15% of it resulting in delivery, which means that an attempt is being made to put the stock in play and kind of draw buyers. So that's something I would be a little cautious about.
For me, I think even if you put all of that speculative activity at a technical aside, just from a fundamental point of view, given that the two sectors that it caters to are two sectors who are generally not that much affected by what is happening in the global economy at this point of time, the pharmaceutical and the specialty chemical space, clearly those are two bull stories in from a sectoral point of view, and given that they are servicing that sectors, I think gives me a lot of comfort.
The last stock on our watch list this afternoon is Bank of Baroda. The stock has climbed to a 3-year high. Strong performance from a PSU bank, whom not many gave chance till recently. The first quarter numbers has been one of the triggers for the renewed interest in the stock. Collection efficiency has gone up by about 98%. The company said that the growth in its corporate loan book is now slowly reviving. There was a 17% growth. Besides that, the management is confident that Bank of Baroda will be able to grow faster than industry rates during this financial year. Motilal Oswal has increased its FY23 earnings estimate by about 23%, and also Jeffries says that the re-rating of the stock will continue. So we're seeing a lot of action in the stock, and probably we could continue to see that going forward also.
Well, Santo, if you have been able to catch the bottom on BOB probably about 2 years ago, you have really made a lot of money, and I think PSBs in general have been one of the dominant themes of this market. Even if you speak to a lot of quantitative analysts as well, they believe if you're playing at sector rotation, probably PSB would be one place to go at. But I think for BOB, I think recently the attention has sort of shifted to BOB from SBI, given the fact that SBI had that major rally last year, and since then it seems to have fizzled out, whereas BOB now is catching up to SBI in terms of stock performance. But I feel in terms of valuation multiples, it will still be a very, very long journey for BOB to catch up to the valuations that SBI or even, leave alone ICICI Bank, even SBI enjoys. At this point of time, is valued somewhere around 0.7 times 2-year price to book value, whereas SBI is a slightly higher level. And given even though the NPAs have been coming out, its NPA book is still quite large, compared to other PSBs. And I think that is where some of the caution or doubt remain over the bank. Let's see how it goes out in the coming year, whether credit offtake continues to remain at the pace that we have seen in June quarter. But overall, I would still probably favor SBI and ICICI Bank over Bank of Baroda.
Well, a quick look at the market at this point. It continues to remain strong. We've seen Federal Bank, Bank of Baroda, PNB among the key gainers in trade today. Nifty up close to about 55 odd points, CJ.
Yeah, I think Santo it seems like we are going to probably end the day around, in the green territory, although a little off highs. We were, I think, considerably higher at the beginning of the session, so clearly a little off highs. But sectorally, Santo, if you look at it, it's been a mixed bag today. Realty and private banking names have taken a hit. Even some of the media and FMCG names have taken a hit, while IT is considerably doing quite well. And of course, Nifty Auto has been the story of this year. It continues to gain strength to strength ahead of course, the festival period, where a lot of good things are expected for the sector. But generally, I think, Santo, bulls will be a little happy to see that the India VIX is down about 7% in the session today, which basically shows that there may have been a little bit of short covering in the market.
So the big events next week are the Q1 GDP and auto numbers. CJ, tell us all about that.
I mean, clearly, I think, Santo, from a domestic point of view, the Q1 GDP number will come. Of course, generally, we don't tend to react too much in terms of market, because market participants tend to read more the high frequency indicators. But sentimentally, if we do get a good number, I think that will be very, very good for the market in terms of we have seen that the earnings performance was sort of okay. It was resilient. We did not see major downgrades in the June quarter earnings. So clearly market will be expecting a decent Q1 GDP number. Auto names, of course, will be in focus. Auto sales data comes out for the month of August, and that will be a very good indicator of how inventory is building up. If retail dealers are building up inventory in anticipation of a blockbuster festive season, so that'll be very interesting to watch. And apart from that, of course, the big event over the weekend will be the Jackson Hole Symposium, where the US Federal Reserve Chief is expected to make a speech later this evening, and that speech is expected to set the tone for where the policy could go. Whatever the Fed speak has been so far in the run-up to the symposium, it has been a mixed bag. Some have indicated there's a need to slow down. Some have indicated that inflation is nowhere near the Fed's target of 2%, and therefore rates must continue to rise.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Markets with Santo and CJ. We hope you have a nice weekend. Also, let us know about your feedback on the show in the comment section below.
Well, Santa, I also hope that you will have a nice weekend, but you should also keep on following us on the social media links that you can see at the bottom of your screen. And for rest of your financial news, guys, stay tuned to moneycontrol.com and download the Money Control app. We'll catch you again Monday morning at 9 a.m. Till then, have a great weekend.